What's up, desktopers? Welcome back to another episode of Bodybuilding University, episode number 8. This week, Nathan's not on the show. He's a little crook, pretty much chilling out around the toilet, unfortunately for him. But haven't seen you in 2 weeks, Brett, because we didn't do the old Europe USAs and flying out there and stuff last week. But how have you been? What's been going on? And how have USAs?
Good, man. This is my busy part of the year. I've traveled the last like 3-4 weeks. Here's Miami, straight to Vegas, straight to Dallas. I'm actually a couple miles away from Martin right now. And then I go to Denver next week for the last little hoorah. And then hopefully, locking in after that. Cause I'm going to be home and stationed down. So I kind of want to jump into a prep then and just start rolling and start seeing things changing. But that's the plan. But we got a lot to talk about. As you said, we had USAs last week, which I was there. That was a lot of fun. It was kind of weird. Vegas was like, dude, it was raining. Like there's monsoons, like each night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, there was like these 20-minute storms that Vegas couldn't handle. It was like all the casinos were flooding the street. I was driving the strip when it hit. People were scrambling. Like there's prostitutes running through the streets in their bikinis and their underwear. And like, it was chaos. It was fun. It was a fun weekend, but it was very interesting. So now I'm out here in Dallas for the Better Body's 4th anniversary. Actually, just got done training with Martin about half an hour ago. We got some back, and I looked at him. He posed for me, so I'm excited for Texas next week for Martin. It's gonna be a hell of a show. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I actually had 2 people message me just recently, Martin. Or maybe one commented on YouTube and someone else messaged me and said that was fans of you and all that sort of stuff. My response was just like, I think Martin's actually being overlooked at this point, even though like you've got impressive updates coming out and whatnot. I think people are just overlooking you, which is, I think, exciting for you because obviously it's going to be a stacked lineup. So I think some people aren't expecting you to take out some of those names. I think you're going to shock a few people and take out some names because, man, like what some guys, lack, you've got as well. So even though, there might be some guys that have, more size or whatever, you've got the deep separation and detail, which we didn't see last year from you as much either. So I'm excited to see that on stage and to see what it looks like.
Yeah, man, it's all I can say is I'm the best I've ever been. Brett got to see that today. No question. We're 10-15% better than I've ever been, man. So I'm just excited to bring what I can bring to stage. The work was done in the off season. I improved all the things that I really think I needed to improve. And I feel like I'm a pretty complete bodybuilder now. So now it's just in the judges' hands. Go be poised and have fun and confident on stage, man. And the rest will kind of line itself out. So all I can say really is this is the best I've ever felt going into one. I really have no stress, man. We're really like literally getting to play with the days and just find what my best look is. So it's all coming together, and I'm very excited for what we're going to bring.
Yeah, man. So are you someone that looks at the other competitors when you're competing, like the update photos and stuff coming up, or do you more just like stay away from that, I guess?
I'm a fan of bodybuilding, so I follow along, but for the most part, I don't even care who shows up. Right now, in my head, I'm the only guy that's competing. And it's just about me killing the look that I had last year. And I think if I do that, I was number 4 and a number 5 last year. And I made significant improvements. So I think that I can be that top 1 or 2 guy and just need to prove that.
Yeah, man, it's going to be exciting. And obviously, like when you're done with the Texas show, for people who don't know, you're actually going over and doing the Arnold Classic UK. How many weeks do you have between those 2 contests?
6.
Okay, so how are you going to manage that? Do you know? Like, obviously, Branch is coaching you, so he knows what he's going to be doing, I guess, with you. But 6 weeks is, like, for some people, is sort of an awkward time period, but you'd be probably, I suppose, maybe filling up a little bit and then just bringing it back down, I guess.
Yeah, we'll probably just do for 2 or 3 weeks, just have more high days maybe than low days.
Yep.
And then just flip-flop it, go into those last 3 weeks and go back to more of a depletion versus filling out stage. But at this point, I'm in shape, so it'll be a little bit easier, just kind of ride the wave. And maybe, on weaker body part days, we go really high, eat 800, 900 carbs and try to improve on those days, and otherwise just train hard and keep things rolling into the show. And really, I think I can just improve conditioning and hardness and stuff like that by just being leaner for longer. You know, the skin gets thinner, the muscle gets harder. You get to train at this leanness for longer. So I think you just get that look. You know, the biggest thing is just making sure, like you said, that we don't kind of run me into the ground. So I'll probably have to eat up for a couple of weeks just so that I don't get too beat up. But otherwise, I think the plan is just kind of to ride the wave and just keep doing what we're doing. It's working.
Yeah, man, I'm sure it definitely looks like it. But Brett, what do you think, obviously, like in terms of like what you've seen from Martin before in the past, when he's done past preps compared to now? Like, what's the difference in his physique?
Yeah, I mean, you know, back when we were living around each other in Denver, I saw him as like, you know, when he was trying to go pro for 2 years and then going pro, and then last year going for his first show. So this was, I said to him today, this is the best I've ever seen him. And we knew that was coming just with time as he matures and as he had a really good offseason, and he, you know, fixed the things he needed to from last year with that, you know, just being honest here, that last 4 weeks of conditioning, you know, I think he didn't take his foot off the pedal here, and it shows. You know, he's 238, 240 right now, and that's exactly where he needs to be, you know. And so like he is sharp. So you know, glutes, hams, everything's in. That's what you needed to see. And so now it's just he's there. So it's just drying out next week, filling up. And like I said, it's gonna be a fun show. And you can tell he's done his work on the posing. He was very, very, you know, locked in, very slow, meticulous, very good, not over, you know, not sweating too much, not breathing too hard. So he's done his homework, and, you know, it's as they say, the horse is in the barn, you know, that old saying. And now it's, you know, it's show day coming up. So I'm excited for him, man.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I don't know that saying at all. I think that's maybe American.
Oh, you, of course, here's like the crocodiles in the trap or something like that.
Yeah, oh, man, we have the most ridiculous sayings, but yeah, man, it's exciting, and I can't wait to obviously watch the show next weekend. But we've got another show this weekend which we're going to be covering as well, and that's for Tampa Pro, and we'll get into that soon. But I wanted to discuss first, Brett, what did you think about the USA's, obviously, like the standard of competition and the contest itself, like in terms of obviously the winner as well, Stuart Sutherland, who's actually jumping in the Tampa Pro this weekend, which is pretty crazy. Not many guys win their pro card and go straight into a pro contest, but he's obviously, you know, biting the bullet and doing that. So what did you think of the whole show, and what do you think about Stuart?
Show-wise, I wasn't Martin, I don't even know if you knew this, but it wasn't so it's usually at the UNLV, like they have like a theater, and it's been there for years. This year it was at Bally's. It was in their convention center, and I wasn't a fan of it because like it was so spaced out. So like, you know, they had the judges, and they had like a VIP section, and then, you know, the regular general admission, but it was like they were spaced out the chairs by like 4 feet in between. So if you got general admission, it felt like you were like 50 yards from the stage. You felt so far away. So I didn't like that feel because you just felt like way too far away, and it was really open. So I wasn't a fan of, you know, if they watch it, hopefully they get some feedback from this, but I wasn't a fan of how the setup was. They could have like moved everything closer to stage, because I like that feeling, you know, and I know as a competitor, we like that feeling when the audience is up on you. You can hear everybody. Like if you have a coach, you can hear him yelling, you know, you couldn't hear anything there. So that, you know, that was kind of a bummer there, but there was a lot of people there. It was, you know, overall good showing. Definitely that, what's his name? Stuart Sutherland definitely won it. You know, I mean, he was the most complete bodybuilder up there if we're talking about bodybuilding. You know, I still think, you know, I had for finals, I was right there. You know, I moved all the way up to right behind the judges so I could get a good look. I still think he probably had another 5 to 7 pounds of conditioning to come down, you know, and that's just, I mean, to be on the pro level, you know, obviously he won that show pretty easily, just because of the size aspect. His legs are huge, you know, on stage and next to other supers and everything. So he had all the body parts, you know, hams, quads, arms, you know, back, chest. I just think he could have, you know, we hold ourselves to a standard. He could have been a little bit tighter, and maybe that's what they're doing. It sounds like he's competing this weekend. I don't personally think it's a good idea for him. I mean, what, you know, like I don't think he's going to be a first call out bodybuilder as he stands right now. He's young and he can build into that, you know, in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But to jump into like this show, which is probably going to be the best show this year since the Arnold, right? I mean, like, you know, for competitive deepness wise, you know, you got Kamal, Quinton, you got, you know, everybody associated, we'll talk about here in a little bit, but I don't think it's a really good call for him to jump in, because like my guess is he's going to get in between 8th to 12th, while he could take some, you know, just go into an off season, you know, make changes, because they know what they look like. Everybody knows what you look like. We just saw you last weekend. Make some changes and bring it back next year to a different show. But well, I guess, you know, maybe prove me wrong. You know, go show out this weekend, and we'll see where you stand. But what I always say, you know, is you only have one pro debut, and like that, you know, that's kind of huge to me. It's like you have one pro debut, and you want to make the most out of it. So like going into a show, and I think even his mindset's like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna throw my hat in the ring and see where we're at. I'd rather you get some confidence, take some time out, make some improvements, than come out and, you know, really try to win a show.
Yeah, for sure. And you obviously made most of your pro debut, or at least your open debut. When you came second to Hunter Labrada there, you know, obviously you made a huge impact. Martin, you like burst on the scene as well, was, you know, obviously another young guy that, you know, jumped in, and even though you weren't 100% inside out shredded, you still made an impact, you know, from where you placed and how you showed up, and sort of like, you know, set notice to everyone else. So I think obviously you guys did that and made, you know, impacts in your pro debuts. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I suppose for him, he'd be interested to know where he's at in terms of like, you know, how far either do I need to go or whatever, you know. So that would obviously be valuable information for him, at least to know that. So how important do you think that is? Or do you think just, you know, go all out for a year off season and then come in at your all-time best, at least whatever that is?
I mean,
yes.
I guess the thing is when you think about this, is you're only as good as your last showing, right? So like you just came off of a high of winning Mr. USA, and now you're going to go, I mean, everyone's going to forget that you won Mr. USA when you get 10th place, in my opinion, you know? And I've looked at this lots of different ways, because when I won my pro card, we kind of looked at the same thing. Like I won my pro card in Chicago was like 2 weeks later. I was like 220 on stage after diuretics and stuff. So we were like maybe 212. You know, but Brett and I sat down and it was like, what's the point in it? Even if we went and won the 212 show, what's the point in that after that? Because you still got to be an open guy, you know? So just go take the time to improve. He knows that he's probably not ready detail wise. I think size wise, he probably holds his own, but he needs to be that size where it's completely dug out, and he's separated and stuff everywhere. But, you know, who knows? Maybe he catches us off guard and gives us all left hook and sneaks into that first call out. So he's got plenty of size. He's going to be a good bodybuilder eventually, no matter what. And I guess we'll see where he stands in the pros as it goes. But I don't think that you really want to get your name wrapped up in just, I'm going to do the show just because, like Brett said.
Yeah, for sure. No, that sounds pretty wise to me. Your thoughts the same, Brett?
Yeah, like, you know, like I just talked about, you know, there's not maybe. I think Derek Lunsford gave people a bad idea that, you know, not many people. That's a generational thing right there, where you go right in, didn't he? Go into the, you know, win your next Tampa Pro and then go and get top 5 at the Olympia. You know, he's a generational bodybuilder, and we're seeing that right now. You know, so it's not very common. And like Martin said, like you're gonna kind of kill your hype. You know, and this. Who knows? Maybe he goes in there and gets top 5, and then that's good for your debut. But I don't think that's going to happen. So you're killing your hype of being Mr. USA by immediately going and getting, you know, second, third call out at Tampa with a stacked lineup.
Yeah, of course, for sure. And you mentioned obviously as well Derek Lunsford, and Iain sort of spilt the beans, I guess you'd say, in terms of Shaun Clarida. Whether, you know, Iain knows this for sure or not, I don't know. You mentioned Shaun Clarida doing the Open at the 2022 Mr. Olympia. And I don't know if this was, you know, 100% confirmed or whatever, but he did mention it. And, you know, just say Shaun Clarida does do the Open. Obviously, what do you think about, you know, him, where he would match up in the Open class if he does do the 2022 Open Olympia? I'll go to you first, Brett.
So I trained with Shaun two days ago, and they actually, of course, you know, after we were done, Gas was videoing us, and they wanted to talk about that. And he even said, even said to me, he said, I haven't decided yet. It's still up in the table.
Yeah.
Thing with him, obviously, he's not going to have to worry about the weight cap for 212. So he can prep the same and then make that decision one day out, if he, 2 days out, if he needs to,
Yeah.
So he told me he hasn't made the decision. He told the camera that, I don't think he would lie to me. I don't think he fully knows yet. So I don't know really where Iain got that from, especially when I'm talking coming out of the horse's mouth. But, if he does, like you said, that's definitely still a thing. Honestly, with the lineup this year and everything, I don't know if it'd be a good call, because you have the reigning Mr. Olympia coming back. That's a 300-pound bodybuilder, so it's like a lot of time it's hard to beat somebody that big. A lot of time you're getting everyone's going to be getting compared to Rami, everybody. That's how it works. The Mr. Olympia, you have to come in, beat the Mr. Olympia. And so when you're at 190 pounds, that's going to be very, very 185, whatever he is, going to be very, very tough. So, and they made a good point. You're talking about that live stream yesterday. Shaun Ray made a really good point. One of his few good points there is you come to win. You're not, I get it. Like you come and you get third place, fourth place, he's making more money than if he won the 212, right? But it's not about that as a bodybuilder, especially him in his career. You come to win. So what category are you going to be best in to go and win the title? And, so I think that's, I still think that's 212 for him. I think it's just going to be too much of a discrepancy between size, especially what if this Michael Crizzo guy makes it there too? And then we got fucking Rami, him, obviously Brandon's still big, Hunter and Nick are big, so it's going to be Bonac, his size. Yeah. So it'd be very interesting to see what he, but again, it's his decision. And it's going to look cool though. It's going to be really interesting. Can you imagine him standing next to Rami and just seeing all that mass and then all that detail on one side? But he is looking, like I said, we trained Push the other day. He's probably the biggest I've ever seen him. Still like 210 pounds, but he's put on some size even this late in his career, which is impressive. But it's still going to be tough. Like I said, we actually haven't seen anything in the last 10 years, 20, 15 years like that. Having a bodybuilder that size, last I can think of is Lee Labrada, back in the 90s is when there's that big of a discrepancy.
Yeah. And I think this would be even bigger because I think Lee Labrada was still taller, but he had like Flavio Baccanini or whatever his name was. Do you remember that with Lou Ferrigno? Like he was so short. And he competed. I don't know actually how he got on the Olympia stage, really like qualifying for a show because he was so short. I think he was like 5'1" or 5 foot or something. And I know Shaun Clarida is like 5'2", so he was even shorter than Shaun Clarida. But it's interesting because he obviously mentioned the size difference, and on the Olympia stage, it'll look very unusual because him standing next to other 212 guys in general, they're a little bit shorter, but standing next to open guys that, really these guys aren't that tall, but he's only obviously 5'2". So if he's standing next to, an Andrew Jack, he's about a foot shorter, which is crazy to sort of imagine. It's like the difference between a 6 foot guy and Shaquille O'Neal, which looks like a huge amount. So,
and to be honest with you, I probably gonna get some flack for this, but I honestly think I think Derek's even if he decides to go open with the invite or whatever, I think he's even gonna have a little bit of an issue of size wise. He don't get me wrong, he's probably one of the most complete, prettiest physiques out there. But just being around him this week and stuff, you realize, hey, he's 5'5", and like when he's standing around Hunter and stuff, Hunter's a lot, just more mass, So will the tiny waist, will the gray lines, will that counteract? Yeah, maybe, but we need to see it, So that's what's gonna be really exciting, seeing Derek up there if he chooses to, seeing Shaun up there if they choose to, and just how they compare to these guys. These guys have been around for a while and their size and their muscle maturity.
Yeah, of course. And I actually did like a little bit of a comparison because I think I'm going to put a little video out. I might even just put some of the photos over this and release it as a short clip on this channel of the podcast. But I put Akim Williams next to Shaun Clarida, and I also put on the other side Moshe Ban, and just comparing them. And I actually put a height chart up, so I got it pretty much exactly accurate. And Akim Williams just doing a front double bicep next to Shaun Clarida looks insane. It looks like the measurements are off, but they're not. So I'll bring up the photo of when Shaun Clarida did.
They did a guest posing together last year, and I remember seeing it. You know what I mean? Obviously, it wasn't competition shape, but they did a guest posing when they were both on stage together, and it's quite the difference for sure.
Yeah, and that's so hard for a judge to actually judge, like trying to decipher like what's too short, like what's, you know what I mean, in terms of overall just muscle. And it's like for me, I was like, when I actually saw that Legion show last year, I was like, how do you judge that? Like, I honestly don't understand how, like, because obviously the height discrepancy is massive, Martin, what do you think if you were Shaun Clarida, what would you do?
Well, if I was in Shaun's position, and you got to look at it from a business standpoint, right? Like, he's already a Mr. Olympia in the 212. If he goes and gets another title, it kind of adds to his name. And like Brett said, he's not going to go win a Mr. Olympia in the Open. Like, let's be honest. So as impressive as Shaun is, like, I really see him kind of fall into the back of the pack in the Open. I don't care how impressive he is or how peeled he is. Like Brett said, when you start comparing to the Mr. Olympia and you start putting all these guys that are 260 and stuff on stage next to him, you get drowned out. And sometimes, even if you are unbelievably impressive, if you're kind of the odd man out, you just kind of get left out, and I think that's kind of what will happen. So even if the check was better for him, I think business wise, I think 212 is a better option for him. He goes and wins that title. It just adds some value to his name, and then endorsements are what's going to make the check versus the check of winning it and competing. So I just think personally it's probably a better choice for 212, especially if Derek leaves. The title's wide open, and him and Kamal are both champions that they can go fit that narrative and run that story almost, you know what I mean? Make people excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. And looking back to that Legion last year as well, he competed against obviously Sergio Oliva Jr., who wasn't at his best. Regan Grimes, who was actually pretty good there, I thought. But I think he beat Regan, somewhat marginally. I thought he deserved to win, definitely. But it wasn't like it was a huge, massive runaway win. Obviously, by the scorecards, I think it was. But I wouldn't say like, you couldn't make an argument for Regan.
I was there in person. Definitely couldn't make an argument for Regan. He looked fat next to Shaun. Yeah, I got fifth at that show. Shaun made us all look fat, man. That's all there was to it. All the Open guys were fat as shit, and Shaun was in shape.
So do you feel like it was an easy win?
Yeah, but if one of us would have been in shape, I don't think that he would have beat any of us.
Yeah. And that's the point as well. So
I don't mean that as a knock on Shaun. I think Shaun's an incredible bodybuilder, but at the end of the day, it's bodybuilding. When someone's 20 pounds bigger than you, if they're in the same condition as you, they're probably going to beat you. Now, when you're 20 pounds lighter than them and your conditioning is 20% better than the guy next to you, it doesn't matter about how big you are, So I think Shaun proved that conditioning can win shows, but at the end of the day, that's because everybody else wasn't conditioned at that show. If someone would have been big and conditioned, they would have won the Open class.
Yeah. And if you think about where Regan would probably place at the Olympia with that same look, and then you think Shaun probably places maybe a few spots ahead, I can't imagine how much further ahead he would sort of place. So it sort of puts him around maybe that 10th sort of spot, which, you compared winning, he would likely be the most likely winner to win that 212 Olympia, even against an impressive Kamal in 2022. So you compare maybe a 9th, 10th, 11th place in the Open Olympia compared to, he might place high. I have no idea. He might place 8th or 7th, but compare that to a win in the 212. I think I'd much prefer a win in the 212 if that was me personally, because you're still the king. You know what I mean? Even though it's you're not going to win the Sandown, you're not going to win it. And regardless, no offense, just because structurally that's the deal he got, being 5'2". It's just, I can't imagine ever seeing a 5'2" Mr. Olympia, Open Mr. Olympia. But that's just my opinion. But guys, let's get into the Tampa Pro and discuss that, because the lineup is stacked, and we're going to be doing the Open and the 212 because it's literally necessary. What's that?
Let's do the 212 first. I'm excited for it.
Okay, let's get on to that. I'll share my screen so you guys can at least see the competitor list, and I'll pull up the names as we do that one. But yeah, it is stacked, man. Like going into it, I was thinking, oh, Keone, he has an easy, it's going to be easy for him to win this show. Now, after seeing the competitors list, it's not going to be that easy because
ain't nothing gonna be easy.
What's that?
I said, ain't nothing gonna be easy about this.
No. So he's obviously competing against last year's champion, Kerrith Bajjo. If I miss any of these names as well, let me know. Stephen Didashak, he's making his pro debut, I believe, here. He's very, very impressive from Canada. Cody Drobot, who I believe is making his debut from Canada as well. He looks fantastic. Ahmed Elgargni, obviously a guy that's competed in the Olympia, looks fantastic from Oxygen.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, very good. Nathan Epler, obviously did very well at the Olympia last year, top 5, I think it was, in the 212s. We've got what's my big names on this one? Ricky Moat
will be good. He looks awesome.
Dude, he looks fantastic right now. He's getting better like each day pretty much. Derek Oslin, obviously plays top 10 in the 212 Olympia. Keone Pearson. I believe, I'm not sure if any Eric Ramirez and Emmanuel Rodriguez ring a bell, but I can't put a finger on them like, right now in my head, what they look like. But stacked lineup. I'll start bringing up some of the names. So Kerrith Bajjo, what do you guys think about him, Brett? Because he's looking pretty fantastic at the moment. I don't know if you've seen his latest updates.
Yeah, no, I've been paying attention. I met him back in Chicago. I think he got like 3rd last year when I was in there, Chicago. Then he went on to win Tampa. So he's the returning champion. Just another freaky little brown muscle belly dude, man. He's the thing is, he's like 40. He's like super impressive. He started bodybuilding late. And he's just kind of really got into his own little groove here the last couple of years. Very, very humble. Met him and his woman last year. Really, really nice guy and a really good bodybuilder. So it looks like, he's putting his all into this prep. Him and he's out in New York, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's with Justin Miller, I believe.
Yeah, Justin Miller and him out in New York. Really, they're putting all the eggs in the basket. They wanted to wait just for this show, and they gotta execute. So I think this is a top 3 guy right here. He's defending champion. He'll be good. He's gonna be full. He's gonna be round. He's gonna be in shape. So I can't say enough about his body of work.
Yeah, man, for sure. Martin, what do you think about Kerrith and where he'll not necessarily where he'll place, but how do you think he'll do overall in this 212 show?
No, man, I think he'll be very impressive. I think he'll probably be in the top 5, like Brett said. There's some guys that have a little better shape than him, but he's kind of known as a condition guy, so you see the graininess in the chest and the arms there, even in the legs.
That's a few weeks ago too.
Yeah, and you don't normally see that in, the guys that have his round muscle bellies like that. So that's kind of really impressive. He's very, very dense. I know some people were comparing like his leg shots to Keone's leg shots. And the one thing I will say is this guy, they seem to diet him where he's just full blown all the time. Looking at his pictures, he doesn't seem like they have to get him super flat, and he's already in good condition. So that's really impressive. This is exciting, man. Like I said, this guy is impressive. I got pictures of Keone. I've been getting pictures of Keone every couple hours today. The dude looks freaking wild, so I can't wait for that. Obviously, he was my training partner all off season. He's one of my best friends, so this is my guy. Whether there was somebody better than him or not, this would be my guy, but I don't think that there's somebody better in Tampa than Keone. Very excited for him. Shape. Everybody in the world knows this guy has some of the best shape on the planet that we've maybe ever seen. And he's finally peeled. So I'm very excited to see this, man. And I think your guys are going to be Keone. I'm very excited to see Cody Drobot. He is very impressive bodybuilder. I've seen him in person. And now he fills the cap of 212. This will be his pro debut, and he'll be in very, very good shape. He's always in good condition. Ricky Moten, I was on Team HD with him. The dude is wildly impressive too. So I might be more excited about the 212 than I am the Open, to be honest.
Yeah, they're both stacked, man. Brett, I'll get your opinion on Keone. Do you think that he, first of all, should be the favorite for this show? Because there's obviously guys that finished in the top 5 of the Olympia last year.
No, you're right. Right, like you said, honestly, he shouldn't be the favorite. If we're, Martin didn't even mention the guy that should be the favorite, and that's Nathan Epler. Nathan
Yeah.
Epler finished top 5 at the Olympia, right? Didn't he get 5th?
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't get me wrong, Martin. We know, like, we both know what Keone looks like right now, so we're yeah. But the thing is, like, Nathan Epler, you've earned a spot. We go by your previous placing, and you got 5th at the Olympia. This is, you're the dog coming into this, so you need to execute. So Nathan Epler is going to be up there. He's looking the same and even better than he did at the Olympia last year. So it's like, how much has everybody leveled up? So it's gonna be fun. But like Martin said, we have a little bit inside analysis because we're friends with Keone here. He's sending us some shots. I saw his shots from this morning, and it's exciting. And I don't want to talk it up too much because it still comes down to stage day always. Shit can go sideways in the next 24 hours. We don't know. But he's in a good head spot. He has a good coach. He has a great surrounding group, and he has the physique to do it all. So now he just has to, ride it home. He's done the work for Keone, and I'd be lying if I'd say that I don't think he's going to win this. But you also got to pay respect to the Nathan Eplers, the previous winner. There's also a few other guys that placed well in 212 over the years too.
Of course, and we'll talk about Cody Drobot now, who I actually interviewed this guy. I think it was shortly after he actually turned pro, and he's a really nice guy. Love his physique as well, and he's made some really, really good improvements.
He looks great. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, likewise, man. I don't know how tall he is, but obviously he's still fitting in that class, and I love the roundness to his physique. He actually looks a little bit like you guys as well, sort of similar, somewhat shape. But Martin, what do you think about? Sorry.
Yeah, Cody's shorter. He's probably like 5'5". And he's crazy impressive, man. I'm super excited to see Cody. I think he's one of my more favorite physiques in the 212, to be honest. I see a lot of similarities with him and I as far as build goes, like you said. And some of the poses that we hit are very similar. And he's very good at posing classically and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of Cody. I think he'll be very impressive.
Yeah, man.
So I'm excited to see him too.
I thought this was on loop, but he's literally holding that for that long, I think, because it changes right at the end there. That was tripping me out. But yeah, he looks crazy. What do you think, Brett, of Cody, and where do you think he'll sort of, I suppose, fit into the mix in this show? Because obviously it is so stacked.
Yeah, I think he's a good example of, he went pro. That was probably, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was like 2 years ago. Maybe a year and a half ago, and he just took time off and he made improvements. So, he was probably a little bit lighter. He's probably in the 190s when he went pro. I don't know for sure. And he put on the size, and he bring in the same conditioning. Really just, through and through a good bodybuilder, and he loves the sport and he lives the lifestyle, and he did it. So I don't think this is going to be his day just because of the talent in front of him, but I do think he'll do. I think this is a first call out guy. Maybe towards the, we'll cover placings here in a little bit, but I do think he's a top 6 guy. And it'll be a good launch pad for him into the future. Honestly, I wish some of these guys would have just competed earlier in the year, because we saw a lot of 212 shows that weren't crazy impressive. And now we have them all kind of piling in here at the end. So it'll be a good show for him. And like I said, it's just going to be cool to see him stand in the next, to a Keone and those guys like that.
Yeah, of course. It's going to be cool to see sort of where he fits in. It's a show that's obviously got a lot of names. It's going to do a lot of sorting out, I suppose, before the Olympia. I'll bring up Nathan Epler now, who obviously we mentioned he has to be one of the front runners. He deserves to actually be the favorite in this show, which, going into it, you wouldn't think so by the way everyone talks online, because obviously Keone Pearson is crazy impressive. But seeing this photo now of Nathan Epler, he looks next level. This photo was only posted 23 hours ago, so I actually haven't seen these ones, and he looks pretty damn crazy. So he's going to be definitely tough to beat, because when you actually look at him, you compare this look to like 4 weeks ago, the updates he was sending, you almost say no way he could beat like Keone. But now you look at this and go, wow, he looks absolutely crazy, and he's definitely going to be contending for the win. Martin, obviously, like you said, you're friends with Keone, and we all know Keone, and we're seeing a lot of updates. But do you think that Nathan Epler can win this show? Because obviously he's sort of proven, and he always seems to sort of nail his peak.
No, I mean, dude, don't get me wrong. I think Nathan is unbelievably impressive. My only knock on Nathan is he's ready to be an open guy because he's too tall for 212.
Yeah.
Nathan is like 5'8" or 5'9".
No, he's as tall as me.
So when you weigh 212 and the guy weighs 212 next to you and he's 5'5", you might get exposed in some shots, right? So the thing is, I don't think that Nathan really has any weak points necessarily. He just can grow overall as a bodybuilder. Last I knew before this prep, he was actually going to take a year to 2 years off and grow into the open when I had talked to him at the Arnold. So for him, he knows that he needs to be an open guy. And he knows that I'm not knocking him by saying this, but you're too tall for the 212. And I think some of these guys that are shorter might end up sneaking past him because of that. But the dude is going to be peeled. He's going to be impressive. And he's going to be right there in the top fighting for a spot. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's actually probably this year, like, you know, if there's any year to continue to do 212 and put it off for a year, it's probably this year with, you know, most likely Derek Lunsford and, you know, possibly Shaun Clarida being out of that 212 Olympia. You think about it, he was 5th last year, and just say, take those two guys out, he's top 3 in the world in the 212s. And it seems like he's made improvements to his physique as well. So obviously, depending how everyone else comes in, his ceiling is obviously limited because of his height. He can't gain any more probably in that class, I can't imagine. So yeah, he's obviously limited there. Brett, do you see any way that Nathan Epler wins this?
Oh yeah, I think there's a good chance. I have him in my top 3. You know, just depending on how they bring it in. He's another example of someone that, like, obviously these pictures are good, but like I think he's even better on stage. Because I remember last year, like before those shows, you know, Indy and New York, I think he won New York, he got second Indy. I never thought he looked too impressive in his pictures, but then when he's on stage, it really shows more. You know, he brings great conditioning. He has a small waist. But exactly like Martin said, his calling is in the open eventually. And he told me at the Arnold as well that he was taking years off and stuff. It was like, show this shot right here. You know, he's got the lower half there, but he needs to go to the open so he can grow that back. You know what I mean? So he can actually put that extra tissue on the back and get it wider, you know, especially the lats there to create more of a, you know, even a V taper down. So that's where his calling is, but he's still good enough. He's still, like I said, he's still the front runner here to be, you know, battle for the top spot.
There you two are.
Yeah, like I said, we're like the same height, you know, 5'9", and so you know he really has to suck down and probably eat a little bit of muscle to get down there too.
Yeah, for sure. You're maybe half an inch taller. You know what I mean? It's pretty damn similar. So yeah, I can't wait to see how he looks when he goes to open, especially because obviously we know, like we said, he's capped. He's up against guys that are much shorter than him and still weighing the same or very close to the same weight. So I think that obviously, like you guys said, yeah, he needs to eventually go to open, but I think he can still do very well. And I've still got him as a very distinct chance to actually win this show as well. Now, Ahmed Elgargni.
The judges really like him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, obviously, you know, coming top 5 in his first Olympia, you know.
You look at you know, he went 2nd, 1st, and then 5th, all, you know, 2nd, 1st, and 5th in Olympia in your first year competing in the pros. That's very impressive. You know, the judges like him.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's discuss Ahmed Elgargni, who's from Egypt, and he trains out of Oxygen Gym. I don't know if he spent his whole prep there or not, but he always looks fantastic. And he's actually did tease like he's putting up like open or 212 like for this show. I think he chose the right category because obviously I did a video and mentioned like, is he running from Keone? Because Keone put a bunch of updates out and then he actually put that up. But I think doing the open would be very, very rough for Ahmed, but he always looks fantastic. I love his shape. He's actually very aesthetic when he gets on stage. As you can see him there, you know, very impressive front double bicep. What do you think, Brett, about Ahmed Elgargni, and do you think that he's, you know, a possibility or a chance to win this show?
Yeah, I mean, another guy that's, you know, that's up there. It's going to come down to peaking, but he's good. He's got beautiful, you know, really good quads with a small waist, a big upper body through the shoulders and chest. A good midsection. It's just, yeah. Thing is, you know, the last couple of times I've seen him, I think it was against Keone, and Keone beat him. And, you know, Keone wasn't 100% there, and I think Keone will be obviously better. So I don't see him jumping ahead of Keone in this show. But I also don't know how much he's improved, but these are the same shots. He still has to get down to 212, whereas someone like Keone, like he doesn't have to worry about weight. You know what I mean? So it's like he hasn't been struggling to make weight or anything. They've been very technical and filling him up. So that'll go a long way in this. While some of those guys like Nathan, like this guy, they're battling to get down to 212. So a lot of it's sucking down this last week. And then you got to play the game of the coach just doing a phenomenal job of filling them up right and not spilling or whatever. And a little bit more of a guessing game than someone that, comes in a little bit lighter, but rounder, like Kerrith, the first guy, and Keone.
I'm just looking at these photos. It says Val posted a week ago. I don't know. It might be close to 2 weeks ago. But to me, he doesn't look 100% shredded. Like I feel like I've seen him harder before. Obviously, like, he's got to do his peaking process.
That's not good.
Yeah. Like looking through the chest, there's no real lines. I mean, I feel like Martin, your conditioning was like, as good as this many, many weeks ago, and you're 1 week out now. So you're sort of the same time period out, but he's here. So, I mean, do you think this is going to be an issue for him, Martin, in terms of conditioning, if these are 1 week ago photos?
Yeah, man, I honestly, I think this guy just takes some time to get revved up. It seems like he usually needs 1 or 2 shows before his best look. I think this guy's really impressive, but I don't think that he's really going to be a top 3 guy at this show, which is crazy for me to say, to be honest, because he's a 212 guy that's able to win shows. So that tells you how stacked this 212 lineup is. But one thing that I know that he's going to get his butt kicked on is posing. I hate to knock him like that, but he's terrible at posing. And these other guys that he's going against are very posing technical technicians. And I think that that will really go a long ways with them. So the Codys and the Keones and the Eplers are very, very good at posing and making their look more aesthetic. And this guy is very choppy in his posing. So,
yeah, for sure. Now another guy from Canada that I wanted to discuss is Stephen Didashak, if I can find him. He is looking very, very impressive. I saw some photos of him next to Ricky Moten a while ago, but you see he looks pretty damn complete here. I believe this is his pro debut. He doesn't seem to have a lot of thickness to the abs. That's the first thing I sort of noticed, but overall he looks pretty damn balanced and he's got some pretty damn impressive arms. Where do you see him fitting in, Brett?
I like him. I was actually kind of chatting with him a little bit the other day. I think he saw the lineup and he was like, oh man, like just a little bit, I was talking a little bit. I'm like, man, this is your debut. Just go out there, make a name for yourself. Obviously shoulders, arms, chest, he's right there. I think, just a little bit needs, especially standing next to like the Ahmad, the Keone, in the Nathan, like needs a little bit more legs. Those guys, have very, very complete and bigger legs. So this is about a show for him. Like, I said this to his face. Is this about, making your name known, coming out, having a great showing. You have great conditioning here. So that's the main thing. If you show up in great conditioning and just, be confident and show it off, like people are going to recognize it. So I don't think this is going to be this isn't going to be his show, but it's a good opportunity for him to, same with Cody. It's a good opportunity for them to make a name for themselves and really, push those guys that are going to be a little bit ahead of them.
Yeah. And Martin, what do you think about Stephen Didashak?
He's impressive, man. He's not ready to win a 212 show, but he's very impressive. Like Brett said, shoulders and arms and chest are absolutely wild. He actually has a pretty good back too. And the legs, some of his leg is really impressive. He just kind of has some gaps. I think most of it is the adductors. I think if he really plumps up the adductors, both from the front and the back, it'll kind of fill that gap and kind of fill the holes that Brett's talking about in his physique. As you see there, the adductors are kind of shallow. If you filled that gap in there, his legs would kind of be more complete realistically, and it's kind of the same from the back. But he's impressive, man. And again, like Brett said, it's his debut. So he just needs to go show the world what he's made of. When you get in a debut and you got a stacked lineup like this, you you shoot for a top 5, hopefully, probably, to be honest, with it, at least where you're at with his physique. If he was to squeak into that top 5, it'd be a total win for him. But he'll do well, man, just based off of his conditioning.
Yeah.
This is another guy. This is another guy like him and Cody. Like, why didn't you guys do like? And I can't say anything because the timing doesn't always work. It didn't work for me this year. But why didn't you guys do Vancouver? Or Toronto?
Perfect opportunities, man.
We saw the winners there. No knock on them, but they would have been competing for those titles. But it is what it is, and now you got to finish it up.
Now you got to convince Keone.
Yeah, it is unusual they didn't do those shows being Canadian. That's
right. Yeah.
But here's another guy, Ricky Moten, who's looking fantastic, making a move from classic up to 212. He was a good classic physique competitor too, because he did like Arnold Classics and Olympias and was consistently like top 5 in the Arnolds in classic and top 10 in the Olympias. So he's a guy that's obviously done well there and has sort of, packed on a good amount of size, I'd say, and kept his aesthetics pretty much exactly as they were, if not better, because the size almost creates a bigger illusion from that, like, shoulder to waist, arm to waist ratio. Looks even nuttier now. Martin, what do you think about Ricky Moten? Because I'm pretty excited for his 212 debut.
Dude, honestly, this is probably one of the guys I'm most excited to see. I don't know what Ricky weighs. I'd be kind of interested to know where he's at as far as the cap goes. And how tall is Ricky? Do you know? I feel like he's a bit taller.
I think he's a little bit taller than
5'8", 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah, that's what I was.
I'd say 5'8".
Which is, again, that's the only knock I see on guys that try to do 212 like him. He's so gifted. He just needs more time. And realistically, probably have to be an open bodybuilder. But again, like you said, I think Ricky started out in men's physique and has worked his way all the way up. So it's kind of cool to see his transformation, and I'm just super excited to see what they bring. I'll be interested to see where his size stacks up. In this shot, he looks good against Quinton and Ditto there, which is great.
He's definitely a few inches taller than Didishak as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Also, it shows how tall he is here. So, these shorter guys, I think maybe will expose the size a little bit, but he's still going to do really well, man. I'm excited to see what Ricky looks like.
Yeah, he definitely, like you can see here just in this photo of him just relaxing, you can tell he's just packed on that extra size, but he definitely needed to do 212s. And obviously he'll have a shape on some people as well. So he's going to be able to expose some people at least that way. So I'm pretty excited to see that and see how he does. Brett, did I ask you about Ricky or no?
No, not yet.
Oh, yeah. So what do you think about Ricky Moten? Where do you think he matches up? And do you think that, he's ready yet to sort of win pro shows? Maybe not this one, but, maybe some other pro shows.
Yeah, put him in that Vancouver or Toronto lineup. I think he's right there as well. No, but I'm just overall pretty juiced to see him in this lineup. I think it was a good call going up to the 212. I was even kind of thinking that when he was like prepping for classic shows because of just the size of his quad sweeps there, his shoulders, his arms, still keeping his waist. Like he's got those like crazy quads that are like super high, you know what I mean? So like they flare right off the hip, kind of like the Shaun Clarida, so it's a cool look and he keeps that tiny waist. So it'll be cool. Like I said, it'll be between him, Kerrith, and Keone. If they can put those three dudes next to each other, I'm gonna love to see that. That's just being a fan of bodybuilding, seeing those structures next to each other. I have him in that 4, 5, 6 range. And hopefully we just got to see if he's able to bring the conditioning to the 212 stage.
Yeah, for sure. And one more guy we'll discuss as well before we do our predictions on the 212s is Derek Osland, a guy who's placed top 10 in the Olympia. And he looked fantastic, and his structure, and when you see him on stage by himself, he's absolutely nutty. I think when he stands next to other guys, he loses a little bit just in terms of overall mass and sometimes just overall just crispness and hardness. But he did come in harder at his last show as well at the Chicago Pro. But Brett, do you think Derek Osland can factor into this show, or do you think that he probably won't have enough?
No. I think he's had his chances this year and he hasn't executed and didn't win any of those shows. And, that was a much weaker lineup. I think that he'll actually be pushed into the second call out here. Like you said, looks really cool in photos. A lot of people do, but when you're on stage, it's a different story. And I think, he'll kind of come back into that second call out, 6 through 10, somewhere through there.
For sure. And I think if you can find some of his like form when he's on the Olympia stage, I think maybe he just was.
Sorry, you also got to remember, this is like, we talked about this, I think, with the Open Bodybuilder a few weeks ago. This is like his 4th or 5th show. Keone, Kerrith, Ricky, they're all coming in. This is their first show of the year. So it's gonna be that fresh muscle, the first show coming in. He's been hanging on for 3-4 months now. He's been dieting all year. So I don't think people realize how much of a factor that is when you've been that depleted for so long, and you just keep trying to peak. So that's going to hurt him as well.
Yeah, sometimes like you can see him down here actually at his Olympia appearance. To me, he looked a little bit like, oh, maybe not that. Maybe that's not going to be his transformation. Maybe that's not going to be his 2019, I think, when he did really well at the Olympia, or 2020. Yeah, that's obviously 2016, I think. But I think we'll come up with the next one. But if you can sort of rediscover that in terms of just the fullness he had, as you can see on the screen now, he just looked like a bigger bodybuilder overall, and just a little bit harder too. So if he can rediscover this at some point, I don't think it's going to be at this show, because I think just, he's, like you said, Brett, he's competed, about 4 times or something already this year, and been dieting for, a fair while. And it's hard to get your physique to continue to get better when you just keep prepping. I think he needs to take an off season and try to get back to the performance that he had.
He's from Tampa, so who knows, like, if this show was somewhere else, he might not have done it. This could have been just, hey, it's in my backyard. I might as well finish off the season.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's get into some predictions. I don't know how we're going to do this. We'll go from, I guess, do you want to go first, Brett, or do you want me to go?
I can go first.
Cool. All right. So we'll do like what, top 5?
I already know. I mean, I pretty much already said it. So I'm going to go. And just so you know, I'm 2 for 2 so far this year, so I don't want to mess this up. I'm 2 for 2 with our open picks. So yeah, I want to go. I'm gonna go Keone. I'm gonna go Nathan Epler. I'm gonna go Kerrith. I'm gonna go Ricky, and then I'm gonna go Ahmed.
Yeah, that's some good predictions actually. I really like that. I'll go next. I'll go literally the same top 3 as you. So it goes Keone, then who was second? Nathan, Kerrith. In 4th, I'll say, and I'll say Ricky Moten as well. And 5th, I've got to mix it up. I'll put someone else in there. I'll put, I'll say Cody in 5th.
You can definitely sneak in there.
Yeah. I think if as long as he comes in conditioned enough, then I think he could get top 5 for sure. Martin, what's your top 5 for this show?
Keone, Kerrith, Nathan, Ricky, Cody. Nice.
I like it. I'll write those down after the show, and we'll actually revisit it this time and figure out who sort of did best to worst. Let's move on to the open. So I'll mention some of the names in this show because it is stacked, like I mentioned earlier. Yeah, too easy. We've got Morgan Asti, we've got Eddie Brecamontes, who I think we're seeing him for the first time this year, Tim Budesheim, Phil Klahar, Kamal Elgargni, who's obviously making his open debut, Quinton Eriya, Roman Fritz, Dorian Haywood, got Henry Jackson, Siang Chul Lee, Joe Mackey, An Nguyen, and Akim Williams. So pretty much every name there is just about mentionable to really do a preview with. So it's pretty stacked, Martin. Obviously probably the best lineup outside of the Arnold Classic for the year. Do you think it's hands down the best lineup outside of that so far?
For sure.
Yeah. And when you look at this as well, do you look at this and go, who might roll into the next contest, which is obviously the Texas Pro?
Yeah, honestly, man, a couple of these people, for one, kind of got sneaky. So Roman, I know he'd been saying for a while, like, 8 weeks out, blah, 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 blah. So he got a little sneaky there.
Yeah, let's discuss Roman a little bit. What do you guys think? Obviously, Roman has the wheels. His legs are pretty crazy. He gets in crazy condition. Upper body wise, obviously, he doesn't have the same level of masses as his legs and some of these other guys, but his conditioning sort of carries him a fair way. What do you think, Martin, about how Roman will do at this show? Because obviously it's stacked and he's up against some big guys.
Yeah, man, I think Roman's physique was a little bit more impressive like 2 years ago. I love how peeled he gets, but he stays so peeled year round. I don't feel like he's made some improvements in his upper body that he needs to. And some of these other guys have like wild fullness and roundness, whereas he's so peeled that he kind of has a flat look all of the time. So I kind of see him slipping back in this really heavy lineup, even though his conditioning usually carries him. But I am excited to see him. I think it's been quite a while since we've seen him on stage.
Yeah, it's been several years,
full blown Roman. So I am excited to see him, but I don't think that he'll be the impressive Roman that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and you'll see it with this one as well. This little video. It's basically, I think this is when he placed 4th at the Tampa Pro in 2016. So he wasn't the biggest there, obviously upper body wise as well, but the conditioning obviously, helped him beat out some guys that maybe would have placed ahead of him otherwise. So, Brett, what do you think about Roman, and where do you think he can sort of fit into this? Do you think he can crack a top 5, or do you think he doesn't have the size?
Yeah, no, it's good to see he's actually competing. It's been a long time. I didn't even realize he was until a few days ago. I just saw like I said, you just saw that poolside update or whatever. And right when I saw that, I could just kind of think it's not going to be there, man. Yeah, the upper body doesn't really look proportionate, especially to his like quads. And just, if you know his story, yeah, like it just always seems like he's dieting or trying to, and he didn't really put on the size he needed to be super competitive. And he coaches himself, so that should be interesting leading into a show. Whenever someone says they're coaching themselves, it's a lot harder, very much harder to peaking. And so it's, that's going to be some mind games, they're traveling across the world and doing that. So I think Justin Compton might be helping him just a little bit, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's what I thought.
But he's been with a lot of coaches, so who knows? So if anything, maybe end of first call out, fifth, sixth, but fourth, fifth, sixth, but I don't have him in the running for this.
Yeah, I don't have him running for the win either. This show, he's obviously up against, some pretty insane guys like Akim Williams and Quinton Eriya and all those sorts of names. So it's going to be sort of tough for him to, potentially come in and win this show. But let's discuss Quinton Eriya a little bit, because he's looking fantastic. There's obviously been a lot of hype for pretty much his entire prep, because he's been posting up so many regular photos. And as you can see here, his shape is looking pretty crazy. The question is, will we bring the level of fullness that he needs with the conditioning and nail it this prep? Because if he does, obviously, he's not missing anything, like really, apart from, maybe a bit more size on the back and whatnot. But you look at him, he's got crazy calves. Like, it's even like another thing you just don't even notice on his physique, but he's tall as well. So when he stands,
never noticed his calves. He does have some fucking calves.
Man, they're crazy. Like, I didn't actually notice it for a while either, until like probably the last year, where I saw a couple of photos where they look pretty impressive. But I mentioned this in a bodybuilding news video the other day. This is last year, 4 weeks out on the left, compared to 2 weeks out of the contest this year. So you can see he's made some pretty impressive improvements, especially in terms of fullness, and with that fullness sort of comes with more hardness as well. But Brett, what do you think about Quinton? How do you think he'll do in this show? Can he actually win it against the likes of Kamal Elgargni and Akim Williams?
So yeah, one of the most exciting persons I'm looking forward to seeing, definitely him. This is a good example. Showed he made some improvements, but is it enough? I think me and Martin were talking about this earlier. He looks awesome always in photos, and that's not saying he doesn't look awesome on stage, but I think like it doesn't translate as much when like he stands next to people, because he's taller, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're gonna see if he did his homework, if he is more complete now, bringing everything up he needed to. It was more so with him, I think it's just more so just time, just continuing to bring up everything. It's not like he's unproportionate at all. Waist has stayed tiny. Legs look good. Arms are bigger. Obviously, shoulders are bigger. But is it enough to like stand next to like an Akim that's going to be a big, big boy, and like a Kamal that's going to be inside out but complete, because he's small, he's shorter, So I have him up there. I'll tell you here in a little bit. I don't think it's going to be quite the winner, but he's definitely going to be able to push for it.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's probably a definite top 3 sort of a guy, but in this lineup, you never know as well, because there's a lot of really good names. So let's go through a few more of them. Now, this guy, Sieng Chul Lee, I think his name is. I'll try to find some photos of him on his Instagram. He's pretty impressive. I mean, he did this show where he wasn't at his best. He did that this year. I believe he placed second, but he wasn't fully conditioned, but he's obviously very complete overall. He did the Olympia one year. He won the Monsters in a couple of years ago, where he qualified for that Olympia. Where do you guys see Sieng Chul Lee placing at this contest? I'll start with you, Martin.
Oh man, this guy's so hit or miss. I have no idea if he's actually. He might actually do well if he's in shape. Otherwise, he's a 10th place guy. I have no context. He has no good pictures posted, so I guess we'll see when he shows up.
It's a guess, hey. Brett, what do you think? Obviously, you can see here, you know, in this back shot, you can see there's a lot of conditioning to go through the hams, glutes, back, everything there. So he did, I believe someone posted some photos of him where he looked like he's made some big improvements, but I can't see him on his Instagram anywhere. So what do you think? And do you think he can factor in?
Thing is, I've only ever seen him like that, you know, where he's 80% conditioned, you know.
Yeah.
Frame's awesome, you know, the shape's awesome, size is big, you know, he's a, you know, even Milos, I think, you know, Milos kind of helped him out a little bit when he was in Vegas. I think he said this guy's an absolute freak, but I think, you know, and people always say, you know, if they come in condition, like, you know, like Shaun Clarida or like Kamal, or like, I'm just giving examples, or if they, you know, Munster, that they would win it all. Yeah, that can work for a lot of people. Maybe this is the most conditioning you can actually get, right? We don't, you know, we continue to say that. We've been saying about that for people for years, is, you know, once they actually get it down, it's over. Yeah, but maybe they're never going to get it down, you know? So I don't, like I said, I again, another one that has to fly. Oh, I guess he's already there. That's good. He's been there for a while. He's been in Tampa, so that's good. But if that's him 11 days out, I'm not sure, man. Like, you still got to be a little bit tighter than that. Obviously improved, so that's a good sign. But he needs to make sure he's super sharp, and I hope they did that. I mean, just based off his shape and stuff, though, I think he's a first call out guy.
No, I agree. If you can obviously replicate what he brought to the Olympia, which is pretty damn good. I think he placed around 11th, 12th, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
He can do pretty damn well in this show. So he's a good bodybuilder. He just needs to, obviously, like you said, bring him conditioning, because at the Monsters him, it was just, had he been fully conditioned, he would have won that show and qualified for the Olympia already. But unfortunately, he wasn't. Another guy who sort of seems to a lot of the time come in a little bit out of shape, or he's sort of varying degrees of his best physique, is Anh Nguyen. Now, he's one of those guys, like you mentioned. This one's from National 2011, but even there you can see, you know, he looks great and he's got great shape. He just doesn't have that level of conditioning. Martin or Brett, do you have, I'll go with you first, Martin, do you have any faith that Anh Nguyen can actually, you know, do well in this show and, you know, potentially get some points to qualify for that Olympia?
You know, I mean, I've seen him in person a couple times in Vegas and stuff. I think he's impressive. He's not somebody that can win this show. He could maybe get top 8, but I really just don't see him putting it together right now. This lineup is super tough, and there's just some guys that are too talented for him to sneak past them. Yeah,
I agree. Brett, do you think much the same about Anh Nguyen? Obviously, you know, being a guy that sort of misses his peak a little bit, like a Sieng Chul Lee or Lee Chiang Sul, or whichever way it is.
So he's another guy that for many years now, it's like, hey, when he puts it together, he's gonna be dangerous, and it's true, but we haven't seen him put it together. So, you know, it's great potential. I think he's gonna be just like Sieng Chul Lee or whatever his name is, gonna be right in that area, just based on who kind of is at 85%, and who's at 80. So who kind of edges each other out. But plenty of muscle. And hopefully, you know, with a new coach, he is. And if he does, though, it'll be cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. Let's discuss Joe Mackey, who I think he pulled, what was it, like 900 pounds or something like that. He's sort of building up to that in the off season. I don't know if he's got a little bit of a hernia here above his belly button. So I don't know if that was caused from doing those crazy heavy deadlifts or what, but he's looking pretty damn impressive. He's working with Mil Sarchev. I don't know how long he's been working with him for, but I think it's only just been a recent thing. And he's looking pretty damn impressive. Like the dryness to his physique, he looks pretty granite sort of hard. What do you think about him, Martin, in terms of how he might do in this show?
Yeah, man. So I know a little bit about his situation. He was working with a coach here in Dallas, Sarah, women's physique. Her husband, Ali, was coaching him. And they had a falling out. So he switched to Milos like a week ago. In my opinion, doing that right before a show is not how you win a show. I don't think that they're going to do well together. I don't think Milos knows his body. And personally, if you've seen Joe in person, he posts certain shots because he knows they look good, but he has body parts that are just wonky. He has some imbalances because he gets too obsessed with these strength goals, in my opinion. Now, that's just my opinion, but you get obsessed with pulling 900 pounds and you start forgetting about the small details in your physique. And I think that happened this year. So I think Joe just needs to go back to the drawing board and work on some things, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he needs to make sure he keeps his midsection tight as well. Just in a few of these shots, where, who knows? He's obviously training with Milos as well. So, potentially he was eating a ton of carbs around his workout. So maybe he's a little bit bloated in midsection because of that. But outside of that, I think that he's going to probably bring his all-time best, in my opinion. He seems a bit more complete. Brett, what do you think about Joe Mackey, and can he factor in? Obviously, changing coaches last minute is pretty crazy. 2 weeks out, obviously it's such a high level.
Are these pictures a week out? Yeah, go back real quick. Go back one.
Sorry?
Go back one on the pictures.
This one here?
Yeah, this week ago.
One more.
That looks softer, doesn't it?
One more.
One more?
Go back one more. Yeah.
There.
So like just there, right there, man, there's nothing going on in the hams or glutes. You know what I mean? And that's a week ago.
I think this is 2 weeks out, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. We should be seeing something by then. Like you said, nutty shoulders, probably some of the best arms in bodybuilding. Crazy impressive strength, but not 100% in as a bodybuilder. There's a lot of talk about him, before Chicago last year as well, because I think he was working with Dennis James and stuff. But it's like I said, to be at that elite level, it's like you're locked in 1,000% on bodybuilding, and you're focused on conditioning. And so I think, like you said, I think it will be his best showing, just because, as I say, I have never even seen his front side look this good. But the small details on the back, the hamstrings, I don't think he has enough legs for his physique. He is a taller guy, so you need to be able to fill out the legs. I don't think the legs are there, and it'll be tough. But like I said, be good. Nice second call out would be my guess. And then hopefully he just keeps, if he can just get locked in with Milos, I think Milos can do damage with him over the years if they work together.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. We'll pull up Akim Williams, who's looking pretty good by his last update. Actually, I saw one just the other day, but you can't see too much from it. But obviously a guy who's placed 6th in the Olympia, where he looked crazy impressive. Got him a first call out. Hasn't regained that yet. I mean, last year he placed 9th, where he looked pretty decent as well, but not to the same level as his 6th place finish. What do you guys think about Akim Williams? And I'll go with you first, Martin. How do you think he can place in this show? Do you think he's the favorite and should win this show? Or do you think that there's, someone else that will probably get the title?
No, man, this is my clear-cut winner. I don't think anybody's going to give Akim a run for his money, to be honest. As much as Kamal has a lot of detail and the conditioning will be there, I think that Justin and Akim have really created a good system. Every time we've seen Akim with Justin, he's pretty much gotten better. Like you said, the Olympia wasn't his best, but I think that was just partially from dieting for so long last year. But I expect to see the best Akim we've maybe ever seen. So I'm excited for this, to be honest. I do think that we will see a good Akim, because the biggest thing is he just kept his mouth shut, went and did the work, didn't even let anyone know he was doing this, and now he's going to come and slap everybody's face.
Yeah, he definitely can do that, no doubt, with his sort of, obviously, not just genetics, just his physique overall, just crazy impressive. Brett, what do you think about Akim Williams? Do you reckon he should be the favorite for this one?
I mean, yeah, he definitely should be the favorite. He's got the most open pro wins up there. Probably one of the more veteran guys up there too. Not saying he's old or anything, but he's done, quite a few shows, been on the Arnold stage, been on the Olympia stage, has a size. So I think I think he can win this even at, like he's won shows in the past, even at 90%, but I would love to see him and Justin put it together and be that 95% like we saw, 95 to 100% that we saw back at the Olympia when he got 6. So love to see that, because we know what he can do, and that's what we expect out of him. But I think I'll say it here in a little bit, but I think he's going to win the show.
Yeah, I agree. He definitely either, I'm so torn, man, because there's so many top physiques in this show. You've obviously got Akim Williams, who is, a top 6 Olympian, so it's like hard not to pick him. Then you got Kamal, who, brings crazy conditioning. Apparently he's like, 10 or so pounds up on what he competes at a 212, which is sort of hard to believe. He's 220 something right now. So he's going to be bringing something different, and he looks conditioned as ever. So that's going to be impressive. Then you got Quinton Eriya, and you got a whole bunch of names. So it's going to be pretty crazy. We'll bring up some photos of Kamal now, who's obviously making his open debut. So that's exciting, and that's another element to this show. Martin, what do you think about Kamal doing the open? Because I've heard on some podcasts people say, well, he should win it. And then I've heard on other ones to say that, obviously more like this one, I think Nathan and you, Martin, said that you think Quinton will beat Kamal at this show. So as before we even were sure Akim was in it. So what do you think about Kamal and where he'll place in this show?
Yeah, man, I think Kamal will be in the top 3, probably top 5, depending on how the size looks. We know his conditioning will be impressive. But at the end of the day, man, Kamal's a tiny guy, and the guys in the show, some of them are mass monsters. Again, like I said, sometimes when you get compared to the best guy in the show, and the best guy is Akim Williams, and he's going to be 270 on stage. Not the best comparison when you're 220, So as long as Akim's conditioning is pretty solid, like Brett said, in the 90%, I still see Kamal probably being like 3rd place, just because there's some other guys that are really impressive here. But he'll bring an awesome look. I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, man. Same here. What do you think, Brett?
Well, he's doing, I think, a few open shows, he said.
He's doing Texas as well, yeah.
He's going to do the 212, so like we know he can get down to 212. So I think, honestly, his best bet for this show, looking at the lineup, is to come in at like 212, 215. Don't try to play the size game with these guys, because you're not going to get close to Akim or Quinton when it comes to size. His goal plan should be, what Shaun did last year at the Legion, is just come in and try to make guys look fat. So I hope that is their goal here, or I hope that is their plan, is to win on conditioning and not try to do like, hey, I'm 225. I'm close to the same condition. No, you need to be the same condition you are on the 212 Olympia stage if you have any chance of winning this. So again, just based off his experience with posing, with execution, with conditioning overall, I have him in the top 3, 4, but I don't think it's gonna be quite enough just because of the size differential.
Yeah, and Kamal, when he competed at the 212 Olympia, I think it was in 2020, which I'm trying to find now, he actually came in like really, really big. I don't know if you guys can see it. He seemed to put on size, and people didn't sort of recognize it because Shaun Clarida obviously beat him and won the Olympia that year. But you can see here just the roundness and the size he sort of added to his physique. So it'll be interesting to see it, I think, 52 years old or whatever he is right now, which is crazy to say. And almost isn't appreciated as well, because we obviously saw what Dexter did to the age of 50. He's obviously exceeding that now by a couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see if he can actually make those improvements still, because he's improved, being 50 years of age and 51 years of age, but it'll be interesting to see if he can do that for another year, because eventually that has to, be on the downward spiral rather than just continually getting better. So, but what he's been able to do is crazy impressive, and it's cool to see a guy have that sort of longevity in the sport. And obviously he didn't push his physique to the complete maximum, as an amateur or a pro, whatever he was over in Europe, because he's getting paid a huge amount of money. I actually saw an interview on Muscular Development saying that he was making, like, he'd win a world championships and he'd get paid 150 grand or something like that. So he used to have it pretty well made in the shade when he was doing it as an amateur. But obviously as a pro now, he's been able to come 212 Olympia and this was, I believe, he on the right. He won the Olympia, so he definitely got bigger after this. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes in at in the Open, probably at his all-time biggest on stage. But like you said, Brett, I think that he needs to play his game, but I think that, maybe his physique will even do better at a bigger weight. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. And we've got guys like Phil Clarida doing this show as well, who's a really good bodybuilder. I'll quickly go to you, Brett. What do you think about Phil, and where do you think he'll fit in? Can he sort of shake things up like he did at the Texas last year? Was it last year? Or whatever it was in the Tampa?
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot Phil was in that. I was peeing when you guys were talking about it, but that's awesome to see. I think, isn't that his backyard too? Isn't he from down there maybe? But he'll definitely be pushing them a little bit. I think he'll be competing with Kamal, honestly. And I think he'll stack up pretty well against Kamal just because of his size next to him. So I think he has a chance to push for that. Who knows, 2 to 4 spot somewhere in there. He'll be in the running. He'll be a top 5 guy as well.
Yeah. Well, him and Kamal could be 2 guys that could do like the he's 48 years of age. 2 guys that could do the Masters Mr. Olympia if that comes back. Because I imagine it'll probably be like 45 plus or 40 plus or something like that. So they could definitely compete for it because they're both super impressive. So it'll be interesting to see the matchup between Phil and Kamal and see if Phil can match up with Kamal Elgargni. What do you think, Martin?
I think Phil's super impressive, man. He'll be in the top 5. I don't think he has what it takes to win, but I do think that he'll be in the top 5 there. I think Kamal might be able to squeak past them on conditioning, even though they'll both be conditioned. Kamal's skin just has a different look and texture to it that I think helps show his condition a little better. So I think he might squeak past him.
For sure. Let's do our predictions. So, Martin, do you want to start, or do you want me to start, or do you want to start, Brett?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm okay with that.
Sweet. Let's do it.
So I'm going to go, Akim's going to win. I'm going to put Quinton in 2nd, and Kamal in 3rd, Phil Kahar in 4th. And then,
do you want me to read out some names? We've got An Nguyen, we've got Joe Mackey, we've got Siang Chul Lee, we've got Roman Fritz, Tim Budesheim.
I'm going to put Chul Lee in 5th and think that his conditioning is going to be at least decent there.
Man, you've pretty much done my exact top 5. I'll give you mine. I've got Akim in 1st. In 2nd, I have Quinton Eriya. In 3rd, I have Kamal Elgargni as well. And then in 4th, I've got who we got on this list still?
Phil.
You got Phil, and then you got I'm gonna put Chul Lee, Sang Chul Lee in 4th, just hoping that he's got that conditioning sorted out. And then I'll put Phil Clark in 5th, although I think Phil can definitely push higher with his conditioning. Give us your top 5, Brett.
Similar in the top 2. I'm going to go Akim. I'm going to give Quinton with his improvements. I'm going to give 3rd to Phil. I think Phil's size, he always comes in great condition. So just his size, we'll get 3rd, 4th, Kamal, and then 5th. I think Sung Chul Lee will get there too.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Awesome. Let's move on. Let's answer some listener questions. I'll bring them up in just a second. But Brett, I actually didn't get you. Actually, no, I did get your opinion on the USA's. But obviously, you guys trained together today as well. How was that workout? And I suppose, what was it like training together once again?
It was good, man. I was just focused on him having a good session. I'm on the road. I've been on the road a lot, so it was more so just making sure he was getting enough volume and detail in, and mainly just kind of looking at him and assessing. So it was good. We, pushed each other, got a good pump. Did the best we could with equipment because it was busy, so we had to kind of jump around. But the main thing was just execution today, and chatting it up, and it felt good to say what's up and get a training session in. So we'll have to do some legs or another session in the off season when full feed and stuff. But overall, good to see him, especially posing, and his improvements. And I'm excited, man. Texas gonna be fun next week. Just like this weekend, 2 weekends in a row, some good bodybuilding. This is what we needed. So some good lineups and leading into to finish out the year ahead.
Yeah, man. Obviously as well, just before we get to the listener questions, we'll just answer a couple of those once we get to them. But have you started prep yet? Because I know that you obviously mentioned that you want to compete in 2022. So has that been on the radar?
No, not yet. So I leave. I'm here till Saturday. I leave, go back home for a few days. Then we go to Denver next weekend. I'm guest posing up in Denver with Hunter Labrada. And then that'll be kind of the last hoorah. After that, I'm shutting it down and going back to Florida. And then that's when I'm going to lock into a prep and get everything going.
Nice. That's awesome. That'll be cool seeing you guest pose next to Hunter as well. Obviously, you know, you both sort of at least starting a prep or about to start a prep for a show. So he's obviously going to be Olympia. So that'll be real cool to see that comparison. Are you excited to see how you look side by side with Hunter?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been around him. He's been down here too. We got everybody down here. So he's, you know, he's full blown. We're both in the 280s. So it'll be the last, I think I've done the guest pose in the last 3 years. The last 2 years has been me and him before that. And I think it's always been, we both did it pretty shredded, you know, right after shows and stuff. So it'll be good to kind of go out there and show, you know, the Denver people that have been watching it, what we look like in our full-blown off season as well. And he's looking big, man. I will say that, you know, Hunter is looking impressive. Like I said, I've been in around him, and I mean, I'm excited to see how his year finished out the O in that lineup. You know, we watched, you know, I know you and I both watched that Olympia TV, and, you know, almost how they're doing the WWE style of bringing attention to it, you know, getting blessing on there and stuff, which is whatever, but it is going to be exciting, you know, with all these new names, the younger generation kind of versus the older generation, but those guys that are left, and it's going to be a fun Olympia. So yeah, whatever I can do to kind of, you know, if I can make it myself, we'll see. But I'm gonna be fucking getting after it here these months ahead.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Good to hear. And you actually touched on a question that I got in the DMs as well. And it was about that Olympia TV episode yesterday about Blessing versus Iain. Then Nick Walker even jumped on there as well. He wasn't so much talking smack, but it was interesting, obviously, seeing what Iain and Blessing had to say back and forth. And Iain obviously is someone who, you know, is not afraid to reply and bite back and stuff like that. So obviously Blessing is poking the bear. So it always makes for an interesting sort of conversation with what's gone on social media recently. But Brett, what do you think about the back and forth overall between Blessing and Iain?
Thing is, like, I know it, and I don't know Blessing well enough. I don't know if he's being serious or if he's just doing this for views, likes, whatever, or just amping it up, or they're telling him to do it. Who knows? But Iain made a good point, man. He's like, you can't really talk yet. You know, like I've earned my spot. I've gotten seventh of the Olympia the last 2-3 years. I've been on the Olympia stage the last 4 years. Like, you need to prove yourself before you can talk to me. And same with Nick to Blessing as well. Like, you quit talking, like, this is your year to back it up, and then you can talk moving forward. But he's not ready yet, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he won Indy in New York, very impressive, don't get me wrong, but there's just too many gaps in his physique right now. I think he needs another couple of years of improvements in the off seasons, you know, filling that, you know, he's a taller bodybuilder as well, filling in those legs, filling in those hamstrings, getting that quad sweep, because, you know, it's not there right now. But he needs to do that before he gets the talking, because he ain't going to be no top 5. I'll tell you that. He'll be lucky to break the top 10, in my opinion. So while Iain and Nick, I think, will be in that top 6 for sure, or 6, 7.
Yeah, for sure. Martin, what do you think about the back and forth between Blessing and Iain, and how do you think they'll both do at the Olympia?
Well, to be honest, with me being this close to a show, I don't listen to that stuff. I think they're dumb. For one, I think Iain is pretty childish, even chirping back at these guys. He's above their level and doesn't need to stoop to that. Blessings can run his mouth all he wants, but Blessings hasn't done anything. Iain's a proven bodybuilder, and he says that. So why do you need to get in the comment section? I think that just is stirring the pot more than anything. But as far as what it does for bodybuilding, I don't think it really does much. And I think that we all need to get people excited in a different way. I'm not really sure that this is the best way to get people excited. We're not the WWE. We don't get to be aggressive towards each other or have violence towards each other. And people just get mad when you don't like each other. So realistically, I think it's not really the best thing for the sport. And I think that we need to promote the Olympia in a different way on how we're going to beat guys. Now, back in the day in the press conferences and stuff, the rivalries were done a little bit better. But social media makes it hard, man, because everyone gets an opinion now. Whereas the magazines could kind of write the narrative and make the rivalry what it needed to be for the show to be good. Whereas right now, every single YouTube channel is making a video about this right now and having their own opinion and stuff. And I just don't think that it's what's going to grow the sport for the benefit of us, at least. And I totally agree with Brett too, as a guy that hasn't done anything yet or hasn't won a show. We just need to keep our mouths shut, grind, show these young bodybuilders that it's about just putting in the hard work and putting in the time. And you're not going to be a top guy right out of the gate. Like, yeah, Nick Walker had success and had this breakout year, but to be realistic with you guys, you know, a lot of us win a pro card and it takes us 5 or 6 years to climb the ranks. And that's realistic. And that's how it should be, because you need to put on some tissue and you have to get better. And there's veterans in the sport. Right now, the sport's in a weird spot where a lot of the veterans are leaving and we have a lot of new guys. And I think that that's part of the reason that we're getting some of this WWE talk, is because it's exciting that a lot of the door's open, right? It's exciting that maybe you could sneak into that top 5. But at the same time, I think that guys need to step back and see bodybuilding as a whole and as a sport, and see how we can grow it as athletes to make it more of a professional sport, not necessarily a entertainment sport.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there has to be an element of entertainment, but like you said, sometimes like with the Blessing, you know, like Blessing versus Nick, sometimes like as a fan, you're like, how serious is this? You know what I mean? Like Blessing is going to rile up, you know, going into the Olympia, Blessing's going to try to rile up Nick, and then whoever else he can get a bit of a reaction out of. And sometimes it just feels like fake beef. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel sincere. And when you're with the UFC, with Conor McGregor and, you know, people he's been, you know, obviously up against and stuff, you sort of feel like it's more real. You know, I don't know whether it's just the way they do it or the way they
ring and beat their faces in.
Yeah, it's real because they actually are fighting. You know, I mean, they're not.
They actually hate each other. You know.
Yeah, and it felt like that was like that back in the day of King Kamali and Craig Titus. Like that was, you know, pretty obvious in the end of the day that was real. Apart from, you know,
throw punches.
Sorry.
They wanted to actually throw punches. That's why it was exciting, because it was real. Like if you would have took them outside and said like, let them at it, they probably would have done it, you know? So like in a world today where like you can't even make an Instagram comment without the world trying to hang you. Come on, rivalries are kind of a joke. Like, let's be real.
Yeah. And it's the nature of a beast as well. Obviously being on like the media side of things, you're looking for stories, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes we look too much, because with this thing on social media, on Olympia TV with Iain and Blessing, it was just, I was sort of watching it thinking, okay, there's gonna be something to report on here. And near the end of it, I sort of like, there was some bits of it I sort of wanted to, okay, that's interesting that, you know, he did make a point that Blessing did, that Iain did count him out and said he would probably never win a pro show and stuff like that. But that's just Iain's opinion. You know, you can't hang Iain for saying that that's my opinion. And Iain did make a good point saying that, you know, he's like, man, I've been counted out before. No one thought I would, you know, or a bunch of people said I wouldn't make, you know, top 7 in the Olympia and win pro shows and whatnot. So everyone, you know, Martin, you've had it, Brett, you've had it, no doubt. Obviously, you know, when you have one off showing or slightly off showing and not your best, obviously have everyone coming out saying you're done, you know. So and you're never going to do anything, you're never going to place high at the Olympia. And I think that sort of, you know, should be seen as a good thing from Blessing, and not so much as a, you know, I'm against you because you said I wouldn't do that well as a pro. But it's sort of interesting, but I understand you guys as well. It's not necessarily super exciting for me in terms of just having them go back and forth, in my opinion. If Blessing was the level of, you know, if I thought he's going to get top 6 this year, I'd say, okay, this is a bit interesting. They might be in the same call out, battling it out, but I just don't think that's going to happen.
If you had an Olympia TV where you actually had like Hunter and Nick on there, and, you know, Hunter goes, okay, well, I'm going to beat you, Nick, because I have a better waist, and I'm going to beat you in this shot, and I'm going to beat you in this shot, and that's why I'm going to beat you. And Nick comes back and says, well, I'm going to beat you because I have better arms and this and that and this and the judges want this, and I'm going to beat you on conditioning. Well, then it's exciting, because those two are actually going to go against each other. When Blessing's in the third call out and just running his mouth, it doesn't matter. And as much as I respect Blessing for winning the shows, be realistic, man. Like, come on, at the end of the day, like, you got to know where you stand. Like, some of these guys are unbelievable, man. William Bonac and stuff, like, they've been top 5 in the world for years and years and years. You can't just expect to win a show and come kick these guys' asses when guys that kicked your ass will absolutely lose to these guys too. So, like, just put it in perspective, man. Like, you don't win a show and you're not instantly top 5 at the Olympia, whether people talk about it, whether people hype you up, whether you think you're a god or not. At the end of the day, man, it takes years to be in top 5 in this sport.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on. Let's answer a couple of these listener questions. I know you got to go soon, Brett. First one is from Ross Flanagan on Instagram, who's actually the owner of Flavor Gang. Are you guys both sponsored by Flavor Gang?
Fuck Ross. Fuck him.
Because when I got the question, I didn't read who it was from.
Get out of here.
Ross is getting fat now. He couldn't handle he couldn't handle weighing 270 anymore, so he backed off all the food.
Well, he went to hospital, didn't he? With what's it called?
Yeah, rhabdo.
Rhabdo, yeah. So, not great, and obviously not funny, but obviously added a lot of weight in his off season. He's actually put on tons of size. Yeah, crazy. He asked Xavier, can you use a different word other than obviously? I don't even know. Like, people point these things out to me on YouTube that I say or do or whatever. I have no idea until someone actually points it out. So,
me too.
Obviously, I say it a lot. So, and then he says, "Can we get subtitles for Nathan?" I've had a few people say, "Like, man, I love Nathan. I just can't understand what he's saying, or like I catch every second word."
Yeah, I don't think subtitles will help because we don't know how to translate it.
Yeah,
Like, I don't even know what he says.
I catch the end of it. And it's just
you got to use your imagination with him.
Okay, next question. This is from MG Damon 1. Top 5 health supplements for enhanced athletes. Obviously, Brett, you're sponsored by Raw and Revive, so obviously they've got a whole range. Revive do anyway. What's your top 5? And I know you'll have an opinion too, Martin, but Brett, you go first.
It was top 5 health supplements for what? Enhanced athletes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always stress that, making sure your internal organs are good, especially for what we do, which ones are affected. So you're looking at, liver, kidney, of course. Anyone that ever writes me and asks me, I tell them Revive, liver, kidney is going to be what you need. And Martin takes something. It might not be that product, but it might Revive, but he takes something as well. And all bodybuilders should. Obvious when I look at cholesterol as well, because cholesterol is definitely going to get challenged with bodybuilding. You can use foods, but sometimes in preps you can't, you know what I mean? So like you can use supplementation that way. I really like K2 plus D3. You need K2 to be paired with D3 for them both to work, effectively. That's going to be for bone health, as well as absorption. And then, 5, you're looking at, lipid. I didn't say that earlier. That has to do with cholesterol as well when you take lipid, or of course omegas. Getting your omega-3s in.
Sweet, yeah, Martin. What's your opinion?
Yeah, mine's the same thing. I kind of use a mix right now. I actually am using liver from Revive. I'm using multi from HD. I'm using kidney from HD. I also think that some other things that are really important is glutamine is one that's really underutilized. It can be used for digestion. It's also used for many other like absorption things. So I think that that's a great supplement to keep into things as well. And then, like Brett said, I definitely think a vitamin D is super important, especially for guys that like work in the gym constantly and stuff. You're not getting out in the sunlight very much. And that's how oftentimes the vitamin D is getting absorbed into your body. So you need to take it, supplement it, especially because a lot of bodybuilders struggle with depression. And this is something that can kind of help that. So this is one that you should really take into consideration and focus on, and something that you can look at in your blood work and actually see if it's low or not. So it's kind of an easy fix. But I think that one's important. And then I would say last but not least, realistically, is drinking enough water. I think hydration is huge. Like, I know it's stupid to say, and like we all have like a rule, like drink a gallon of water a day, but like, guys, like really focus on that and make sure that you're hydrated, because it will make a huge difference in like all bodily functions, digestion, pumps, all of it. So I think that that's one that like we all overlook, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things as well. Like if I don't drink enough water, I notice I get brain fog and all that sort of stuff. So it affects you on so many levels. And like you mentioned, with like vitamin D, that's a very easy, basic one to get. And it's very cheap as well. Like I can get like a year's supply for like $20, like a 5,000 IU a day, which is a good dosage as well. So how much vitamin D do you guys do? I'll go for you first, Martin.
Yeah, so I actually do 20,000 IUs
A day?
with the K2, especially on prep at the end. I might pull it back to like 10 or 5, like you said, in an off season. But in prep, when you're just depleting your body to death, I think it's important to run it a little bit high, as well as it's a good antioxidant that helps with liver repair and stuff like that. So it's one that you want to have a little bit in excess, if you will. So it's important. But yeah, I think anywhere from, depending on what your blood work says, you can take up to 40,000 units if it's really low, to get it back to where it needs to be, and then slowly start to pull it back.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important as well to get your levels checked of vitamin D, because I actually had a client, this is pretty insane. He actually was taking 5,000 IU a day of vitamin D, and his levels were like 5 times the upper limit of what you should be having. And I don't know why. White dude,
that's also bad because it's a fat soluble vitamin. So
yeah.
you don't want those too high because you can't just pee them off.
Yeah, because he was taking it straight for probably, might have been about a year at 5,000 IU a day. He's probably getting a little bit of sun. Like where I used to live, it was pretty sunny in general. Like it was, got a lot of hot weather. But still, I don't think he got that much sun. He worked inside. It's not like he was outside all day, every day. So yeah, that was crazy. So it's always important to get checked too. I've actually got a blood test company as well that might be coming on board as well with the channel, but they're going to give like 25% off to the viewers and stuff as well. So I'll try to get that all sorted out so you guys can, if you want to get your levels checked. It's very different here in Australia. Like here, you can basically get all your tests done for free and or very, very cheap by going to the doctor, and it's all sort of paid for by the government. But I know in the US and UK and stuff like that, you've got to pay for a lot of your own healthcare, I think, as well. So I believe they operate out of the US and the UK. So maybe if you guys are interested, I could hook them up with you as well if you guys were wanted to promote one of those brands. Because man, it's pretty handy. Like honestly, like even though you have to pay in America, you literally get the kit sent out to your house, and you basically draw your own blood, put it into a few things, and then you just send it back. Like it's a pretty awesome service. So that's pretty cool in America, at least anyway. We'll ask 1 or 2 more questions. This one's from _amart_04 on Instagram. It says best way to improve quad sweep. I'll go to you first, Brett.
Hey, stop licking your balls. All right. Keeping the PG-13 around here. Quad sweep, so obviously, squats, hack squats, where, a lot of that's going to go into foot placement. There's been a lot of different talks in regards to that. What I like to do, if you're just specifically, looking for quad sweep, is, hack squats are great for that. But then what I've been doing recently, seeing that help, is a little bit more of a closer stance. So, still going heavy with the normal stance on hack, always low. So keep your feet placement low on the platform, either on leg press or hack squat. And then what I'll do is I'll do a back offset, and I'll put my feet really close together, like almost like touching together. And so you're fully just loading out that outside, that quad sweep, that vastus lateralis, and then, just feeling it. So I think a lot of people just need to really slow down the motion, put their feet in the right spot, and then feel the movement working. So you're actually going through, contracting through at the top, and then controlling it back down with time under tension. And I think a lot of people just get in there and just do reps. They don't actually know what they're working. And so when you really just, figure out what you're doing, mind muscle connection, knowing where to put your feet, either with squats, putting your heels up on squats to load the quad more, and just slowing down and making sure you're contracting. I think a lot of people get caught up in with legs. It's just about moving the weight, and that's not so much as it is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at pro bodybuilders like Johnny Jackson. He used to squat 800 pounds, but his legs were still his weakest body part, So that's a perfect example of wanting to feel the weight. Martin, what do you do? Do you do anything specific to bring up quad sweep? I know you've got pretty good sweeps anyway, but do you do anything specific there?
I think a couple of things are important here. One, I think that most people biggest issue with quad sweep is that they're not getting tissue work done on it. The IT band is completely bound up, and you're not being able to stretch it, because when you do stretch the sweep or that outer quad, you're getting a lot of pain in your knee, you're getting pain in your IT band, then you're bitching about it. So then you don't train legs hard. It's kind of a one problem that leads to hundreds of problems.
Bro, that
So
sounds like me.
So I would say that first things first is that you need to address tissue work on your legs, whether it's deep tissue massage, whether it's getting your ass on a foam roller every single morning and beating the shit out of your quads for a month or two until you can actually lay on the foam roller and feel it go into the muscle. Because I guarantee you 95% of you can't even relax the quad fully on a foam roller without it hurting really bad. So start working on that. I think that that's one thing that will make an unbelievably drastic difference. One, in growth. Two, in mechanics and less pain. I know that that's one thing Brett and I both experienced as we were coming up and we were growing really fast. We both had terrible knee pain, and this was the only thing that really fixed it for us. So I think that that's very important. Two, obviously everything Brett said, foot placement, stretching the quad, really making sure to get a full contraction, full extension on every rep. Those are all important things to build a mind to muscle connection. And overall, that's really what it's going to come down to, is being able to load the portion of the quad that you want. Once you get big enough legs like Brett and I, realistically, you can put your feet shoulder width apart and get whatever part of the quad you want to load based on your feet, based on what part of the foot you're pushing off of. And then the last thing I would say is something to consider is squatting, leg pressing, or doing those movements without shoes on. So you can really feel the platform and really feel where you're pushing through your foot, to start to get those mind muscle connection cues better off. So oftentimes, a lot of people wear shoes that really restrict their foot, kind of bind them up or push their toes together. And in doing so, you're kind of turning off some of the nerves to your quads, to be able to get that full contraction really deeply. So if you've seen me train quads, I've almost always wore Vans that are really wide. And I think that that's made a big difference. I know Brett wears the Converse's, kind of similar, flat-footed, open, more shoe. If you notice, even with my Vans, oftentimes I don't even really tie my shoes very tight. And I think that that's part of the reason that my quads are really detailed and separated, is I can feel where I'm pushing through my feet constantly, whatever leg movement I'm doing. So I would say those three things: tissue work, foot placement, and last but not least, feeling your feet on the ground.
Yeah, and that's a big point as well. I remember watching Emil Sarchev DVD back in the day, and I think he was talking about basically like where you push from in terms of your feet is what part of the quad or hamstring or whatever you're going to hit. Like he was saying, obviously, if you're letting more onto your heels, it's going more through your hamstrings, glutes, loads that area more, because it's more on the backside. Obviously, pushing more through the ball of your foot, you're going to hit a little bit more quad. So it's cool to hear you actually talk a bit about that and foot placement and how that affects what you're hitting. But in general, like pushing out from the heels loads more of the hamstrings and glutes, and then pushing off the ball more of the quads for people that don't really know. Do you ever push up from the outside of your feet or anything like that, or do you mostly pushing through the ball when you're quad focused?
No, yeah. So that's what I was going to say, is for my sweeps, I actually kind of focus on turning my toes out and pushing. Say if this was my pinky toe and this was my big toe, I put most of my weight on the outside of my foot here and drive my squat that way. Whereas if I'm focusing on a teardrop or more medial quad, I'm going to focus on the weight more on my big toe and my more middle foot and drive that way and kind of rotate or almost have my feet straight versus having toes out just a little bit.
Yeah, and there's so many varying opinions on this as well. I remember, I don't know if it was Milos, it was one of these guys back in the day saying about doing the sweep, and they were doing, I think it was Milos, he's doing giant sets, and he'd do one set where the toes were actually like, just so that your feet, your toes were touching, and then your heels are just very slightly apart, and then you're going down, your knees are touching on the way down or close to touching. And I did that for like almost I did it for a whole off season between my first comp and my second comp, and obviously my legs were small all over back then anyway. But it made a big difference to my quads. But I think as well, I was doing the same thing. I was pushing the outside of my foot, and maybe that wasn't the most efficient way to do it, having my feet completely together. But it definitely did work, and I was putting that focus on, like you said, like if that's your feet and your face like that, the tension was definitely there, you know.
Yeah, so he was just teaching you how to load your foot. And that's kind of what I mean, is like eventually you're going to get to a point where your quad and your connection with your foot and the ability to connect with your quad is, it doesn't really matter where the foot placement is, because you can determine that with how you push. But I think as a young individual, sometimes you need cues like what you're saying, turn the toes in or whatever, to get you to actually load that part of your foot, which you'd maybe never load if you didn't put your feet in that position. You know what I mean?
For sure. And I remember seeing John Meadows. This is what confused me. John Meadows did a video and he said, put your feet together, put your toes out like that. So I learned like this way. And then John Meadows was saying, do it like that with your knees way out. And I'm like, hold up, wouldn't that hit your medialis more? But it, like you said, it's about the foot, where you're putting the tension. So same thing as like when I do triceps, like I really push from, like, if I'm doing dips, you know, have people used to say, I remember it was like, oh, if you want to hit chest, you lean forward. If you want to hit triceps, straight up and down. Really, for me, it came all down to where I'm pushing from my, you know, if I'm just grabbing it and just pushing through my whole arm, I'm not hitting my triceps that well. But if I'm pushing right off there and it's, you know, the tension's going out the back of my arm, it's night and day difference. So it's a lot about that. And I think that, you know, people may start training, it's very important to hear this sort of stuff and learn that sort of stuff over just, okay, how does a movement look overall? Because if you're just going on how it looks, you're maybe not feeling it. Because Ronnie Coleman back in the day would bend over row crazy amounts of weight, and you go, oh, well, it looks sloppy, but he's got the tension on that muscle, you know. But if you've been training for long enough, what he's probably feeling and how he's feeling that, at least to a certain extent. But guys, do you have any final words or anything you want to plug or anything like that? Brett, do you have anything?
Oh man, it's good to be back on chatting it up. I think it was a good session. We have a lot of good bodybuilding this week, and like I said, next week as well. So we're rooting for Marty to finish strong, and then we'll have to do a show next week with Nathan. Maybe get a guest. I'll look for a guest for next week so we can let Martin do one-on-one with you leading the show, and then let him rest up and get ready.
Hell yeah, sounds good. Awesome. Hopefully we have Nathan back next week as well. Martin, do you have any final words or what you're going to be doing? Obviously you're competing next week, so that's pretty much it for you, I guess.
9 days out, guys. Check the YouTube channel out. We're doing 12 days into the show, so I just dropped day 12 today. We'll hopefully have day 11 up tomorrow, which was my last leg day with Brian Dobson, and just kind of keep cranking content out to you guys. So follow along with that if you want. And otherwise, guys, we got 9 days to bring the best package we can. Super excited. And I'll get on here with Xavier next week, give you guys a one-on-one, kind of give you the lowdown on prep and everything that went down. And other than that, just happy to be back with the boys.
Yeah, man, it's good. It's good to be back. For some reason, we're doing it like a day or two later than last week, but it feels like I haven't talked to Brett in about a month or something. So it's good to get back. It's weird, man. I think you've done so much in between. I've seen so much go on your Instagram, and I'm like, holy crap, like 1 minute you're posting down Charles Griffin again, and then you're out in the USAs, and then you're doing this and that. So you guys have been busy, so it's cool to see, and keep putting stuff out there. And I encourage everyone to check out both your guys' YouTube channels. Look them up. If you search their names, you will find those YouTube channels, because you guys are both pumping out content, which is awesome to see. But that's it for this episode. For myself, Xavier Wills, Martin Fitzwater, and Brett Wilkin, we are out.
Peace.